What's up, everybody? Auburn Blitz podcast, day after Thanksgiving. Is everybody rolling around? A little bit full, I guess, from all the turkey and everything that you ate. So excited to be here this morning on Iron Bowl Eve. I'm getting a lot of feedback, Randy. I don't know what's going on over there on that side. There we go. That's better. I don't know what happened there, but that cleaned it all up. It sound good now. Sound like you were at the ocean. Sound like you were at the beach. But you don't now, so that's all that matters.
Everything's cleaned up, everything good to go. I tell
It
you,
sounds fine
technical
now.
issues are going to be the death of me. But yes, you just brought up what I'm thinking about this morning. I got enough turkey in me to fill me up for the next month. Taking my two kids to the basketball gym this morning with my chunky self to see if I can sweat some of this off. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there going, okay, am I starting today with the diet, or am I going to wait until Monday to get this diet started with the Iron Bowl coming up on Saturday and all that we partake with that? At least that was the conversation I had with my wife last night. Now, she likes to start and stop a diet at least 2 or 3 times a month. And my daughter looked at her and said, you might start it, but the odds that you stick to it over the next couple of weeks, very, very small. So how about you, Brett? You going to start one up on a Friday before Iron Bowl?
I need to be sprinting around this house right now. I've been up since 4:00 this morning. I had to take Brinley to meet Eli. They're in a fishing tournament this morning.
Okay, all right.
On Middle
Where
Pond.
is it?
Middle Pond down there below the dam. So between Tallahassee and Lake Martin. So
Okay.
I've been up this morning for that. I did a drop off, and then Braden's hunting this morning. So I've been up stirring around, hanging out, waiting for the podcast. How about that? No, I need to be out there running and sprinting and doing all that kind of stuff. But didn't overeat yesterday. I kind of monitored that a little bit. I didn't try to go all out, but again, gives you an opportunity to kind of reflect and kind of just chill and not worry about a lot of things. And so we had a good one. Hope you did too. Hope everybody out there that is watching did. We'll be on the air at noon today with Auburn Blitz. I'll be on the air with Gary Harris at 10:30 on the Alabama show in Tuscaloosa. So we'll be talking Auburn, Alabama football there. I'm gonna have more Auburn, Alabama overload than I am turkey from Thanksgiving, but that's a good thing. And then we got AHSA semifinal action tonight. 1A through 6A is going to be some really good football games tonight that we'll talk about here in just a little bit. Basketball, obviously, a little bit of a break until next Wednesday when they take on Duke. So looking forward to that. We'll see how all that kind of plays out and goes. But Jerron already saying, "War down, guys." Iron Bowl Eve. He's pumped about it. I think everybody is. Nobody really knows what to expect going into this game. I think that's what we'll start with. 5 weeks ago, I would have probably said, "Hey, man, I'm gonna get my clubs out. You might want to play some golf."
We've done it before, Brett.
We have, but that's not the case now, and it just feels like I saw what Kirk Herbstreit said yesterday about Auburn, and kind of looked like maybe that was the turning point for them for Hugh Freeze's career at Auburn. That's what you and I and Wade talked about yesterday. I think we talked about it with Andy on Sunday. Maybe that is the game. Maybe these young guys and this coaching staff and things are starting to put all the pieces together at Auburn, and the X factor is still Peyton Thorne. Let's not forget he's the quarterback, and if he plays well, I think Auburn will have a chance. If he doesn't, they won't. So, but into the future, the recruiting and all that stuff, maybe that A&M game was the game that we were all looking for.
Well, we're hopeful, and I told you yesterday that I don't think this game solely lies on Peyton Thorne and the offense. You've got an Alabama team coming in that's reeling, a lot of question marks on their offensive side of the ball. Jalen Milroe had a poor game this past one. They only scored 3 points. which was the least amount of points, I think, in 22 years for Alabama. That's saying something. So Auburn can win this game in Tuscaloosa defensively. If you take the storyboard that's already out there on exactly what you need to do and limit big plays, especially by Ryan Williams, big plays with the legs on Jalen Milroe, because if you let him outside of the pocket or break containment, that he's a speedster. He can really take it the distance, and he's the biggest X factor for them offensively. But I think some teams have seemingly figured that out, and so Auburn could win this football game, Brett. We've seen it in past. This could be a 17-10 Auburn win or a 14-7 win for somebody. There's this game looks that way. I think Alabama's got a really good defense, but they got a couple of key pieces out, namely their middle linebacker and Deontay Lawson. You're an Auburn fan.
Massive for them.
You hate it for him, but if you're an Auburn fan and you've watched him play the last couple of years, you know what a big difference their team will be without him, because he's been an all-SEC caliber player since he walked on campus there at Alabama. So that's a big storyline here coming up too, Brett. So I don't necessarily think Peyton Thorne, and I hope I'm wrong, I hope Auburn goes and scores 30-plus points.
Is there anybody over there on that defense? Let's talk about Alabama for a second. Is there anybody on that defense that you look at and just, terrifies you? I don't, for the first time. Lawson being out obviously is a big key. Malachi Moore is still a really good player, no doubt about it. But, used to, year in and year out, it's 3 to 4 to 5 guys over there that you had to be concerned about. And I'm not saying they don't have a good team. I don't have a good defense, but I don't even know that this is the best defense Auburn will play all year.
Well, I don't watch them much. When I do watch it, it's hoping that everything's about to fall in on them. I'm that type of Auburn fan. I'm not going to lie about it. But this hasn't been a team that makes you want to tune in to see how great they are. That's the difference. And the Nick Saban factor's gone. Wade said it yesterday. Luke said it before the season started, Brett. He almost said the exact same thing that Wade said yesterday, that that aura that is around that program will exit as soon as Nick Saban goes. You won't have going into ball games where you feel like there's no chance of beating them. If you do beat them, it's going to take a miracle. You don't have that anymore. So teams don't go into matchups with Alabama thinking that the team's way better coached, way better set up, a lot better players. I don't watch them and feel that way. So your answer is no. I don't watch Alabama defensively and think that they're way more talented than what we've put out on the field defensively. And that's the first time I think I've been able to say that since 2008, Brett. You agree? Now, there may be one off season where Derek Brown and Marlon Davidson and that crew was at Auburn, and I thought that we matched up with them from a Bo's and Joe's standpoint. But other than that, over the last 15 years, they've had some of the best defenses in college football history. And one of the toughest eras to throw some of the best defenses out there in college football history. So, no, I don't sense that anymore, and that's a good thing.
There was a coach named Dennis Franchione for Alabama in 2002. It was his last Iron Bowl. He pretty much checked out, and a lot of people didn't know it yet. I think he had already made preps to get out of Alabama and go to A&M at that point. But Auburn went up there with a fourth-string running back, Trey Smith, and nobody really gave Auburn a chance in that game. I think Auburn was a 14-point underdog going into that game. Auburn won 17-7 that day. Really shut down Alabama on the offensive side, and I had a couple big plays to the tight end in that game that sparked Auburn, and then Trey Smith had 126 yards rushing in that game. Now, most of it came on one run where he broke it. But, you go over there with a diminutive Trey Smith running the football on the road against Alabama. Auburn was able to pull it off that day. I'm not saying that's how this one's going to turn out, but it's got a similar feel to it. No Nick Saban anymore. You're going over there with a guy that doesn't really understand this rivalry. He's not from here. It's Brian Harsin. It's whoever else you want to interject. But he didn't grow up in this rivalry or in the Southeast, learning and knowing really what the Iron Bowl is about. He's about to coach in it, and he may win it. I mean, I'm not saying that he won't, but
he's favored to win it. So, he should win it.
Yeah. He should. Yeah. So, I mean, but so was Franchione that day, and that's the thing, that you don't really know until you're in it, until you're immersed in it. And so all of that kind of has that same feel pre-Nick Saban coached Alabama teams, when you got a guy that's an outsider, let's be honest with you, trying to figure out what it means to coach in the biggest rivalry in college football. So he's going to have a learning experience himself on Saturday, not just the two teams going at one another. This is going to be a unique experience for him.
X factors, y'all send us in some X factors that you see. Here's a couple that I've talked about yesterday, but we'll talk a little bit more about it today. First off, it's DJ Durkin. Up for the Broyles Award. Brett deserves it. He's got this Auburn football team as a top 20 defense nationally.
No doubt.
One of the top 5 in the SEC. Probably more freshmen playing. If you were to look at those top 20 defenses nationally, I bet we're having true freshmen, take more snaps than any of those other 20. And he's doing a tremendous job. But the X factor today, of course, is Jalen Milroe. But what do you do defensively to combat that? I mean, DeMarcus Riddick has been a really good spy on quarterbacks. He's been able to run down versatile quarterbacks that get out of the pocket, sideline to sideline. It was probably what you and I bragged on DeMarcus Riddick the most. We've called at least 3 high school games with him, Brett. And I never thought he was a thumper. I said it on broadcasts a lot. I thought he was going to end up being outstanding in coverage. I'm talking about pass coverage, because his sideline to sideline speed and his ball skills, when you add in what he was able to do in basketball, would really show up. And I feel like I've been right with that. He's been able to run down some of the fastest running backs and quarterbacks in one-on-one opportunities. He's starting to get more and more playing time. But I'd like to see him in the ball game and us out of that nickel as much as possible. I don't want to look over there and look, I'm no DJ Durkin, Brett, but a few things I'm looking for, man. I don't want to see a whole lot of snaps that we got 3 down linemen on the defensive side.
No.
I will take my chances with Ryan Williams over the top, having to make 2 or 3 outstanding plays for them in the passing game for us to lose, and Jalen Milroe beat us with his arm, then us lose containment, lose outside coverage, us letting him rush for 100 yards. I think that's the worst thing that can happen tomorrow, is Jalen Milroe rush for over 100 yards. If that happens, we're in trouble. Because he's going to hit 2 or 3 plays with a passing game. Ryan Williams is going to make a couple of plays. I mean, it's coming. But we've got some that are equal to him on our side, I think, that can make the same type of plays. Which team has the most rushing yards tomorrow? Isn't that one that's always key in this ball game?
It's the benchmark stat in the Iron Bowl for all, forever, even in the modern day of RPO stuff. Teams that run the football the best, the team that runs the football the best in this game usually wins it. And again, weird things happen, outliers happen. And I know a lot of times that gets overblown in this rivalry too. But most of the time it's down to the team that can get off the field on defense and can control the line of scrimmage and run the football and make big plays when you got to make explosive plays. So I like what Auburn's got going. For the first time in Auburn history, Randy, the Louisiana Monroe game and the Texas A&M game, consecutive games where Auburn had back-to-back 100-yard rushers and back-to-back 100-yard receivers. I want you to let that sink in. They back-to-back 2 100-yard receivers. Not just one, but 2 100-yard receivers and a 100-yard rusher in back-to-back games.
Same guy both times.
That's
on both sides. Jarquez Hunter, KLS on the offensive side. Now, Cam Coleman also. We've had a couple of 100-yard receivers.
Both of them went for 100.
Yeah, but KLS he's been the consistent one. And I'd love to see him get what does he need? $140 to eclipse 1,000?
Yeah, I think.
Is that the number? I think he's at 860 something, 850 something.
He's at 865.
Oh man, I'd love to see him get the 135 and get to 1,000. And my gosh, he can. He is
He can
consistently been around that
Can in this
100-yard
game.
mark. But we got to run the football to open up the passing game. I feel like to start the season, we
Would
passed the
you ever
football.
think that Alabama's leading rusher would have 615 yards going into the last game?
And he's the quarterback, isn't he?
Absolutely.
No. Here's the problem with Alabama. If I were an Alabama fan, Luke, if you're tuning in, our Alabama lovers that tune into this show, please tell me if I'm right. The 2 running backs that Alabama put out there, did everybody in the country offer them? Had to. Brett, I mean, they finish 1 or 2 in recruiting every year. Am I wrong?
I think Jam Miller was a 5-star for sure.
I bet you the 2 guys that touched the football at running back for Alabama, every one of us in the country wanted. You can't explain to me, and all the offensive linemen, Brett, I bragged on their offensive line. Now, it doesn't look good late in the season. But I bet every single offensive lineman they've got out there were top 10 in the country in their classification in the position that they play.
This is their rushing stats against Oklahoma. Jam Miller had 12 carries for 45 yards, and Justice Haynes had 3 carries for 18 yards, and Jalen Milroe had 15 carries for 7 yards. They only had 70 yards rushing, but I mean,
go back and look, Brett. You did this last week. I don't know if you remember, but you and I, when I think we were doing the Saturday Sports Countdown, went through this. Jam Miller and Justice Haynes, their stats every game look like that.
I went all the way back to the Georgia game, and it's about a combined 18 carries for about 65 to 80 yards. That's what they get. I mean,
I certainly hope they continue to play that way on Saturday. Please.
I think the best game they had, I mean, look, even against Wisconsin, where they annihilated Wisconsin back in the early part of the year, Jam Miller had 9 carries for 71 yards, which is not a terrible day, but he had 1 run that went for 34. And then Justice Haynes only got 2 carries. He only carried the ball twice for 17 yards. It's not a running football team. There's no other way to spin it. Up and down the line, every single game, pick out whatever game you want to randomly pick out. I can pull it up, and they're going to look very similar to that I just rolled off against Wisconsin. So this is a game, or excuse me, this is a team that they want Jalen Milroe to try to find Ryan Williams. I mean, I hate to say it, but it feels like a one-hit wonder for them. And if they can't find him, it's him running around back there trying to create. And, I've talked to some Alabama fans the last couple of days, and they said, man, we have no identity on offense. And A.J. McCarron talked about it a couple of days ago. He said, look, I'm not the old Alabama quarterback over here, get off my lawn, pissed off guy over here nitpicking what Jalen Milroe's doing. But he said, man, I'm just going to say it honestly. He said, if people get mad, I'm sorry. He said he can't read coverages. He said Jalen Milroe cannot read coverages. He said when a team shows him something early and they change it up, he can't get it done. He said, look, you can be mad if you want to, but I'm just telling you what I'm seeing from the outside. And he said that's a problem. And he said he's gotten worse over the year with it. He said, I don't know why, but he said it's a problem for. And so
I'll give you a couple of reasons why. So much pressure put on him to make plays because you're not running the football down somebody's throat.
Right.
Back to what I was going to say about Auburn. I hope we're coming out the other end with this, but I thought we were passing to set up the run early in the season rather than running to set up the pass.
Right.
And having some type of identity that you can lean on. If I was an Alabama fan, and I'm not by no means, but if I was, the biggest problem I have is I know that I'm a physical downhill running team. Lane Kiffin and Steve Sarkisian came in, but even with them in, we had some of the best running backs that's ever come through the college game, Najee Harris and others, Brian Robinson. I can keep going down the list.
Right.
Even though they threw the ball all over the park, they were able to run the football down your throat when they wanted to. They can't do it this year. Not only can they not do it, they're unwilling to try to do it. And
they're not even attempting to do it.
Auburn was in the exact same boat, though. Look, we know Brett and I have been begging for an identity with Auburn football, especially on the offensive side, for 15 years, it feels like. Since Gus Malzahn changed things up in 2015 for whatever reason. So 8 or 9 years we've been begging, will you just go to something? Recruit to that one thing that you feel confident you can win with and stick with it. Auburn hasn't done it, and Alabama has done it, and they've been smart enough to change things up when they need to, Brett. And Nick Saban was a savant, much like Bear Bryant when he went to the Wishbone, to know that he needed to change things up. But when they needed to be physical, they were able to be physical. Now, if they can be physical, they don't do it. And that's the reason I feel so good about this. Now, we're going to go over there and win. I don't know, but I tell you, I'm going to be watching, and I know that we match up pretty well with them. And if we let them run us out the gym over in Tuscaloosa, it's a problem.
It's our fault.
Yeah, it's our fault. And I can handle losing. We've gotten used to losing. I can deal with that, but I can't handle going into ball games where you and I want to go to Willow Point and play golf because we can't stomach watching it. And we have had games where you and I have decided to do anything but sit in front of that television and watch it because we were that disgusted with where the program has gone. But I don't feel that way, and I'm telling you, Hugh Freeze has got a great opportunity here. He's got a tremendous opportunity in front of him.
He does.
He goes to Tuscaloosa and swings this thing back in Auburn's favor, and we're already swinging at recruiting. No, they're not doing a poor job recruiting. They're a top 3.
But they're not getting anybody in Alabama.
But we are, and we're getting all of them from Alabama.
Right.
And you can feel it out there, Brett. You and I've got the good fortune of being around a lot of these coaches. I don't think anybody in the state of Alabama talks to more coaches than you do. You can't convince me that there's somebody that's traveling the state like you do outside of these coaches recruiting. And you talk to these coaches, Brett. You talked to them when Brian Harsin was there. And the common conversation you would have when Brian Harsin was there was very seldom does anybody from Auburn grace our campus. We don't see them, and if we do see them, we don't consistently hear from them. Am I saying something out of turn here?
Exactly right.
That's what you heard over and over again. And now what do you hear, Brett, about Auburn recruiting?
And they're in and out all the time and just overrun. And, they've made this state a priority. And Auburn should always make this state a priority. Alabama should always make this state a priority. I mean, Alabama's program has grown. I get it. I mean, I understand that, what Nick Saban did, but he's not there anymore. And DeBoer's got a great recruiting class coming in. They're number 1 in the country right now. But they're from all over. And I'm just going to say this, and in the day and age of the portal and things like that, I'll ride with taking my chances on getting as many close to home as I can rather than somebody from Los Angeles or from Seattle.
I agree with you.
Or wherever. I'm not cutting that player.
No.
Like if he's the number 1 ranked guy at that position, yeah, go get him. Can you get him to stay? I mean, that's another challenge that you got to deal with.
Well, Nick Saban could, but he ain't there anymore.
But it's different. That's right. I mean, that's
anymore.
what we're talking about. That factor is not there anymore. And, you can spin things however you want to spin it. And especially like you said, if Kalen DeBoer loses and Hugh Freeze wins, it's going to be an ill taste in Alabama fans' mouth over the next however many months till spring rolls around. That will mean that they are 100% out of the playoff. 4 losses in his first season, and it'll be the disaster they dreamed of. That they had a nightmare. I don't guess they dreamed of it. It'll be their nightmare that when Nick Saban left, the next guy'd come in and fall on his face. And not only would they have lost 4 games if they lose the Iron Bowl, they could have easily lost that Georgia and that South Carolina game with the way Georgia came back, took the lead, and then the way South Carolina was literally an onside kick away from going down and kicking a field goal and winning the game. So there's a lot of angst. There's going to be a lot of tension from that side tomorrow. Jeremy said one of the keys he thinks is Thorne has to play within himself and take what the defense gives and not try to make plays that aren't there. When he has done that this year, our offense has looked really good and explosive. I agree. It's when he makes a rash decision, he comes to the line like he did against Oklahoma and changes the play and thinks he sees something, and he makes an ill-advised throw, and it ends up being a pick 6, which ended up ultimately costing Auburn that football game when you're trying to run the clock out or when you're trying to at least move the ball down the field and at least, hey, at worst, punt. Hey, punting can be your best friend. It can be your best friend in games where you're like, okay, that drive didn't work out. Let's punt and play defense. You got a top 15th ranked defense in the nation. Let them go up there and do their thing like they've been doing all year. But you take advantage of opportunities offensively when you can and make those plays, but don't try to overdo it.
Well, Jeremy knows this well. He had one of the best seasons in their school history this year, and he rode their best player to that. Now, he had a lot of pieces around him. But when you've got the best player possibly in the conference in Jarquez Hunter, and you leave football games where you're not sure you gave him enough opportunities to win the game for you, it's your own fault. And the last couple of games, for whatever reason, we go over to Kentucky, and you can question whether Hugh Freeze was really involved in the game plan. Of course, he was sick that week. We go over to Kentucky, and he rushes for 278 yards. We lean on him. We come back. We play Vandy. We don't. We give him the football twice in the second half. All of us Auburn fans are irate. Hugh Freeze goes into a press conference and said he looked winded on the sideline. I can keep going down some of the things we've had to endure and hear this year. But since then, Hugh Freeze has ridden the best player. And he's come through. And I bring this up for Jeremy's comment on Peyton Thorne. When you got the best player, your quarterback, your receivers aren't him. Let him, kind of wield what you're planning on doing the rest of the game. Give the football to him enough that the only thing you necessarily need to do is have Peyton pull it 8 or 10 times. He's proven he can do that. He kept us in the football game last year doing that, running the football. His legs were great in that game last year, and we can do that again this year. And then after you've kind of leaned on him for a while, then you can probably hit something over the top. But again, we started the season with the pass leading into the run. I hope we start this ball game with a run leading into the pass. Wade said it yesterday, and I see a comment at the bottom from Wade. That left side of the offensive front for Oklahoma just dominated Alabama's defensive line. If you turn the film on and you see that, if they line the same people up over there, you can act like you're getting up for an Iron Bowl, and you can act like you're going to play different. But if you don't physically match up with who's across from you, then it's not a good thing. So Auburn, I think, has proven that we are really good on the lines of scrimmage when we need to be. We've been able to run the football when we want to.
You think Jarquez Hunter is as good as Xavier Robinson? He had 18 carries for 107 yards. You think Peyton Thorne can run as good as Jackson Arnold? I mean, Jackson Arnold's kind of slow. I mean, he's not some kind of world beater rushing quarterback. And he's been in and out. He didn't even play against Auburn. He rushed the football 25 times for 131 yards. If you'll remember last year, Peyton Thorne didn't get much done through the air. It was pulling it down and running and controlling. He had a good game running the football. We just made some mistakes at the end of the game to cost us. And so, I mean, if you look back on that, I mean, the pattern is there. The blueprint is there for you to, if you're Auburn. Again, now you got to go out and execute. Do you know how many pass attempts Jackson Arnold had against Alabama in the whole game? 11. 11. Wow. They threw the ball 11 times, man. He completed 9 of them, 68 yards through the air. It's very similar to what Auburn did last year against them, if you remember. I mean, Peyton Thorne's passing stats last year were terrible in the Iron Bowl. I mean, he didn't do hardly anything. But when it came to running the football, he had a pretty good night. And that's how we were able to control the game up until the very last part where we decided to rush 2 men on a line that on 4th and 31, which still will go down as one of the most baffling lines. But that was a Ron Roberts defense. That was not a DJ Durkin defense. So I have some faith that won't happen again if we're in that spot. But, that's kind of the summation. Going in, I mean, we can sit here and pound these stats and pound all of this strategy to death, but it's real simple for both teams. If Jalen Milroe can make some plays in the air and can get outside the pocket, he makes this thing really dangerous for Auburn. Vice versa. If Jarquez Hunter's getting 5 to 7 yards a pop, and Auburn's just blowing them off the line of scrimmage, could be a long day for them too.
I think we can too. I really do. I don't want to go in so confident, but I do really like the matchup. I've watched enough of Alabama this year to know that for whatever reason, they're not an overly physical football team. They're just not anymore. And that was their identity. It definitely was. They were not going to be out-toughed under Nick Saban. And, we matched them a couple of times. We definitely did. The games we won, we really matched their physicality a few times, and we had them in Jordan-Hare, and it made the difference. But outside of those few times, we didn't. But I like our chances, and again, back to I'm not the one coaching, and I'm not the one playing. But you've got to go somewhere. And what you said yesterday that I want to just say one more time. You can't win in anything if you don't think you're the best. If you don't feel confident going in somewhere, I was talking to somebody yesterday at Thanksgiving, and they were talking about a high school team that was undefeated, and they were playing this past Friday in the quarterfinals. And he said, really, for the first time this year in that ball game, I didn't feel like our team thought they could win getting on the bus heading over, Brett. I felt like we were beat before we went.
Sure.
And this is a program that you wouldn't expect to hear that from. But when you pull up some of these teams, like in Alabama in the past, like a couple of those LSU teams, you do go into those ball games going, man, we just don't match them. I'm tired of watching this film. This guy in front of me is about to make me look bad in front of a whole lot of people. But I love what our freshmen are saying, Brett. They don't think that way. They think we can go over there and beat them.
They've got a different mentality, Randy. This is a winning not that we haven't recruited, winning freshmen before from programs, but look at what Auburn got in this class. Hey, these players are used to winning, man. These players are used to being the best. They don't back down from anybody. Their mentality's always been, I only know me being the best player on the field. And so why wouldn't they take that mentality in? And they knew from day one coming in, they said, look, we're coming to Auburn to get Auburn back to where they need to be. That was the mantra last year. When they signed, they were like, we're bringing this class together, and we're going to stack another one on top of it next year and another one on top of it next year, and we're going to have the best roster in this conference. That is their mentality. And right now, like Wade said, if Auburn keeps it together recruiting, I wouldn't trade our class with anybody's class coming in. You and I have already talked about this. Auburn's put together as equal quality defensive back class as they did to the receiving class last year. And that's saying something. That's the best.
If they close with Offer.
If they,
and yes. If
they close, and it just feels like that probably has already been done. There just hasn't been an announcement on that yet. Maybe in his mind, there's still a little bit of, indecisiveness. A win tomorrow probably seal the deal for him and several other guys. And again, that goes into this, what all is riding on this. We put so much emphasis on that Texas A&M game. And I say me and you did all week. We told everybody on Auburn Blitz. We told them on this podcast why that game was so big. And we broke down 4 or 5 reasons why that game was so big. And Auburn figured out a way to win it. And now here we are talking about all this momentum and the mentality of the team and the confidence of the team going up there playing an Alabama team that just got drug across the field in Norman. I mean, let's just be honest. They kicked the field goal, man, and their stats were horrible. And so now you got teams that feel like they're going a little bit in the opposite direction here toward the end of the season. And what if Auburn lost that game, Randy? We wouldn't be sitting here talking about any of this. We'd be going, well, we figured out a way to lose to A&M in overtime. And, even though Alabama got blown out, why would we have any reason to go to Tuscaloosa? I mean, I can already replay or play it in my mind what we'd be talking back and forth about. But that's not the case today, 24 hours, a little bit over 24 hours out from this game.
Look forward to it. Brett, we've kind of hit on the Iron Bowl, and we will again tomorrow morning from 7 to 9, but we got about 10 more minutes left this morning. And My friend, we've got some great games tonight. I want to start with one because you were over in the community. So let me tee you up, and I want to get your feel for it. But probably the one that's most intriguing to me is that Parker game at Oxford tonight. Parker's undefeated in state. They lost to Carrollton, Georgia. Juju Lewis earlier in the year, out of state game. That Naeem Alford just brought him up, but they got a lot of other pieces there at Parker too. And Oxford's undefeated with Mason Mims back there at quarterback. We got a very good friend. It's the running backs coach over there, Marte Wyckoff, who was a great player in his own right. Just your thoughts, what your feel was like over, and maybe let everybody know how beautiful that facility is at Oxford High School.
Top to bottom, it may be one of the best looking high school facilities I've been to. And that's the school and all the surrounding facilities involved as a whole. Their indoor facility is phenomenal. Now, Coach Adams talked to me at length about the pain of growing and the stuff that they have had to deal with the last several years of being in trailers and having to bust their kids down the hill to the practice field because things were under construction. Mm-hmm. It's the pain of progress, right? People out there that don't have those facilities are going, well, cry me a river, please, now that you walk in your, multi-million-dollar complex. But, they did have some challenges to go through, and their facilities weren't up to speed. And so they made a commitment in Oxford to build the best. And now they're all able to take advantage of that. And just the way that school sits, and with the football field and the baseball field right there beside the front entrance. And it's just a really, really beautiful setting. And they're very proud, and they should be. They've got a great program. He's a big part of why they are where they are. He's done a tremendous job since he's been there. He's won a couple of region championships now since he's been there. They've got their work cut out for them tonight, though, and he knows that. I think they may have had. I hate to speculate, but I think Parker had over 20-something transfers in the offseason. And you can go through and you can see where all they came from. And, it's not a secret. And they transferred in to play for Parker for a reason.
And to play with each other.
To be in this position where they are tonight. That's why they all came together. And so you'll see Naeem Alford on that Parker side. And they've got a lot of great guys on the defensive front. They've got, Jordan Crawford being one of them, that's a commitment to Auburn. That's going to be a big addition to Auburn football next year. But Oxford's got a really sound football team that plays good fundamental football. And I talked to him about, their ability to come from behind. And they've been behind in several games this year, but they haven't wavered. They don't panic. And when you got a 3-year starter at quarterback like Mims for Oxford, and he talked about it at length with me. He said, Brett, I've got a guy that we put a lot on him. He said when he comes to the line of scrimmage, he's really making a call himself and change. That's how much confidence we have in this guy. He said we let him take a look and let him check into the play that he feels like's the best. He said that's how much preparation this kid puts in every week and how much he knows. And he said, sometimes when you're not the most athletic, and he's not talking about Mims, he's talking about as a team in certain positions against your opponent. He said that game day preparation and that film study, you being in the right position or a half step faster to that spot can offset some of the athleticism of other teams. And he said that's what we bank on a lot of times on Fridays, is that we're going to over-prepare and we're going to outwork the other team. And he said so far it's helped them, and it has, to a 13-0 record.
AHSA game of the week tonight, WOTM. Make sure to tune that in. Brett will have a pregame show on the road with AHSA brought to you by AlDOT Drive Safe Alabama. So tune that in tonight at 7 o'clock. Brett, you go ahead and get the rest of the 6A down to 1A setup, and I want to set up another game that I'm watching here in local area. We've been watching Highland Home all year. Highland Home has not had a close football game unless I'm missing one. Jacaleb Falk, who is the brother of Keldrick Falk, not quite as big, but just as good an athlete that's committed to Auburn, will be coming up to Reeltown tonight. Jamarcus Smith, quarterback at Reeltown, kind of changes up the offensive dimension that you see from Reeltown. They've always been line it up, run it down your throat. 3 or 4 tremendous running backs, and they still got them right now. But they got Tay Martin out at receiver, special teams, all that he does in the secondary. Tremendous player with Smith, and of course they can still run the football with the best of them. It's a really good Reeltown team, and Reeltown's had Highland Home's number for quite some time.
Yeah, they have. That's the thing that worries you if you're a Reeltown fan.
At some point you worry it's going to go away.
It's been some real close games. All of them have been, and Reeltown's been able to make the play. And going back to I think the very first time they played in region play, they won the game 8-7. It was on the road at Highland Home, and they decided to roll the dice and go for 2 in regulation instead of getting into that overtime. And a lot of times in high school, you have to read your team, and you have to read the other team and say, is it to my advantage to carry this into overtime, or do I need to go ahead and try to end it now? And obviously, Coach Johnson felt like it was to their benefit to end it then, one way or the other, because he felt like maybe Highland Home maybe had a little bit more stamina, maybe making a few more plays, whatever. So they rolled the dice and they beat them in regulation 8-7, and they've beaten them ever since. And this is going to be another war. Highland Home's tired of losing to Reeltown. Reeltown is trying to make it back to a state championship game. And if they make it back, Randy, they're my favorite. They're your favorite. We've been saying that all year. Their lone loss came to T.R. Miller. They lost to Fife last year in a game that they played Fife as good or better than anybody did all year last year. They were just a little bit outmatched. So I like this game. It could be the best game of the whole semifinal round, 6A through 1A. We'll see. But it's going to be a war in Reeltown, and you won't be able to get it within a mile of that stadium. There'll be people everywhere standing on top of each other, climbing in trees, doing whatever they can to get a glimpse of this game. And Jacaleb Falk will be playing in this game for Highland Home. That's Keldrick's brother, another Auburn commitment. So, again, we've talked about 2 games, and we've talked about 2 potential Auburn players already, Jordan Crawford and then Jacaleb Falk, and then possibly Naeem Alford. Just in the first 2 matchups we've talked about here so far in these semifinals, that kind of tells you where Auburn is. Now, the other 6A semifinals, Saraland at Pike Road, I got this one being pretty lopsided, I'll be honest with you. I think Saraland's going to go in there, as John asked, what Alabama high school quarterbacks do you see at major college programs next year? Well, here's one of them right here in KJ Lacey. He's going to be at Texas unless he decides to go somewhere else. But he's been committed to Texas for 2 years, and he's the reason Saraland's back at a 12-0 mark. He's a phenomenal player. Pike Road has gotten better as the years gone along, but I don't see them staying with Saraland. They hammered them pretty hard last year. I think it'll probably be similar to that again this year.
Trent Seaborn's playing as good as anybody in high school football, too. He won't be there next year, John, but Trent Seaborn at Thompson has been their starter since 8th grade. He won that game against Auburn as an 8th grader. Seaborn's a great player. And the only other one that I would say is a big-time D1 prospect, Mason Mims is great at Oxford, but Duckworth down at Jackson High School.
Oh, absolutely.
Duckworth, he's a 2026 guy, though, Brett.
He is.
Yeah, I think he's a junior this year, and
he's a junior.
He's a junior. He'll be one of the best quarterback prospects in the 2026 class.
Well, there's some good players in that 26 class, man.
Yeah, there are.
Good Lord. I mean, Cedarian Morgan. I mean, you look at him at Benjamin Russell's the number 1 receiver in the country.
Linebacker down at St. Paul's.
Absolutely. I mean, there's another loaded class here for the state of Alabama. Nobody's shocked by that. All right, in 5A, it's Leeds at Moody. That's a battle-tested Moody team that everybody really hasn't talked about like they've talked about Montgomery Catholic and Central Clay and Viger. Okay, the talk was those 3 teams. Moody is as good, in my opinion, as those teams because of what they've had to play and who they've had to play and what they've been able to do. Now they'll face a tough Leeds team. It's kind of a rival game, proximity wise. They know a lot about each other. That'll be a fun one to watch. But Coach Gaines, again, has done a good job at Moody building up a program that really didn't have much history in football. And now they're building a new school and they're getting new facilities. And, there's a lot of positive vibe around that Moody football team. And they just win football games now up there. So that's a big one. And then the biggest one to me in the state is this Viger at Catholic. Viger's given up 68 points in 13 ball games this year. And they've scored 400 and something. They have annihilated everybody they've played. And it hadn't been close. So they take their traveling band of defensive men up to Montgomery Catholic, who plays a pretty nasty style of defense themselves. So this one may be 3-0. We'll see.
Really may. Yeah, I think the athletes will match one another. The lines of scrimmage will match each other. And you and I have been doing this almost 20 years. If Viger has things going in the right direction, you don't want to play them. Not in Class 5.
No.
So Montgomery Catholic's been as good, if not better, than every program here in the state over the last 5 years. They've only won one state title, but they haven't lost but 3 or 4 games in that 5-year period. And all of them have been late in the playoffs. So that will be.
I remember Viger going up to Hueytown, Randy, with Jameis Winston, and everybody's like, "Well, blah blah blah," and it was all about Hueytown, and they went up there and shut them down.
3 points. Yeah, I think they won 19-3.
I mean, this is that kind of team that Viger puts on the field that makes a run, and they won a state title just a few years ago. It wasn't too long ago that they won a state championship, and they're right here with a chance. But that's going to be a war in Montgomery tonight. You'll keep your eyes on that one. All right, 4A, St. Michael at Jackson. Hey, Jackson's been the class of 4A all year, but St. Michael, they put points up, man, and they got a sophomore quarterback and Gunner Rivers. I mean, obviously everybody knows Philip Rivers now coaches St. Michael, but they may not get over the hump tonight, but St. Michael's going to get over the hump here in the next couple of years. I'm just calling it. They've only had a school since 2017, and you can already tell the mindset that Philip Rivers brought into that school and the athletes he has. They're going to win a state title under him at some point in time. But if they knock Jackson off, man, all bets are off at that point.
It won't just be this year. If they knock Jackson off, it's going to be a run, maybe like you've never seen, because he's got nothing but boys about to come through. And all of them going to have Rivers on the back of their jersey, and they're all going to play quarterback, and he'll get enough pieces around him down in that market that they're in that they'll have a tremendous run. Do I think they can beat Jackson? No, I think Jackson's the most talented team. If you were just take the enrollment number out, so the depth, the deal goes away, the running back and the quarterback and the pieces that Jackson have around are as good as anybody in the state.
Yeah, no doubt. 4A, West Morgan, 13-0 at Cherokee County, 12-1. Every 4 or 5 years we see Cherokee County right there knocking on the door.
That's played in championship game last year.
That's what I'm saying. They get in these runs.
Get over the hump. Yep, they're really
good.
Well,
the quarterback was out in that game, got hurt, and so it was Montgomery Catholic they lost to in that game, if you'll remember. Catholic beat them, and again, but they played without the quarterback. I thought they hung in there about as well as you could hang in there without your QB. All right, 3A, Piedmont's having a great season. They're 13-0. They knocked off Fife last week. They'll be taking on Mars Hill at 12-1. Again, that's another team that you hear about every single year in the mix is Mars Hill from up there around Florence, a private school, and they just get it done. That's going to be a good football game. Piedmont has to travel up there.
I got a few more athletes of the week to name this afternoon, Brett, but a couple in this ball game that you'll see. Raleigh Pinto. He's a receiver, but he plays in the secondary, returns kicks. He is going to account for 200 to 250 yards every ball game. a great player there for Piedmont. And on the opposite side, Mars Hill wants to run the ball down your throat. They had a running back go for 250 last week.
Right.
He was one of our region players of the week. Very good player. So that's going to be a great matchup. And Piedmont, they do it as well as anyone, Brett. No matter who the coach is, they do it as well as anyone, don't they?
Absolutely. And talk about facilities. Just an outstanding facility top to bottom that they have. You can go around these communities and you can see the programs that are bought in.
About it? Who does?
Well, that's exactly right. And look, it's not just the athletic facilities, it's the school. You don't build a multi-million-dollar athletic facility to have a pigsty in a school. That don't match, right? Yeah, it's a vision. It's an entire vision from a school standpoint and a community standpoint to say, look, if we're going to do this, we're going to be the best at it. And look, I'm going to say this. We're building a beautiful school here in Alexander City, and it's a commitment. I go around. Look, it was brought up to me in Oxford. When I walked in, they said, well, y'all building a gym in Alex City, aren't you? I said, yes, we are. It gets noticed. It's an arms race. You can say whatever you want to do, but everybody notices when you have progress going on. So if you live in a community where everybody goes, well, I don't know why they're doing that. This facility's fine. It was built back in 830 BC. I don't know why in the world we'd want to build anything else. These kids, they're good to go in. Why would we build anything else? I mean, that's just such a close. Now, do bricks and mortar make you better in the classroom or on the field? No, they don't. But it sure as hell gives you confidence. And it sure as hell shows your kids that, hey, we're committed to your success. We want you to have the best possible everything to give you an opportunity to be as successful as possible. So to the closed-minded people out there that think you're wasting money on buildings and stuff like that, it ain't like you hop out of bed one morning and decide you're going to build a $150 million school. There's a lot of time and preparation that goes into it and years of figuring out how to do all that. So it's just a mentality, and you just got to ignore those people. And the people in Oxford caught flack. They caught flack for building some of this stuff. And then you walk in that indoor facility like I did, you just shut the naysayers up. I know that's what Alabama likes to say, the lank stuff. Let all naysayers know. Well, that's what these high schools are doing. And it doesn't matter if it's 1A or 7A, Randy. It's not just 7A schools. I mean, Piedmont is 3A, and they got an unbelievable athletic facility in school. So it's a lot of pride. The next game, the other semifinal in 3A is Southside Selma at Houston Academy.
Well, Houston Academy's got one of the best quarterbacks in the state. He's going to lead there with just about every school and some of the state records that you could hold. But they got good pieces around him, Brett. They've had 2 defensive players the last couple of weeks that have been our region athletes of the week. So Houston Academy, just a great all-around program. And we already know what Southside Selma's got. Southside Selma's got 2 of the best receivers in the country, and luckily Auburn's got both of them committed. They'll give them a chance to win the football game for them tonight. But should be a great matchup. Houston Academy with a big win last week.
Yeah, the upset of the week to me. I mean, look, I know they got a good football team, and they probably didn't think so, but to me, that was the upset of the week over T.R. Miller. All right, 2A, you talked about Highland Home at Reeltown, kind of ad nauseum there. Nothing else really to say about that game. Going to be a war. And then Sulligent at Tuscaloosa Academy. Sulligent 9-4 at Tuscaloosa Academy. Don't know much about Sulligent this year, 9-4, but Tuscaloosa Academy pretty good.
Yeah, really good team. Preston Lancaster, their quarterback. Again, one of those guys over 10,000 yards of offense. So watch them offensively. They can throw it all over the park. Most of these teams, they don't get to this point without great players. And, Brett, I can go down all of them and tell you some of the key ones. Just know that I think some of these matchups, when I look at them, nowhere near the separation we've seen in the past. I think some of these teams can actually get through and win some games they're not expected to here in the semifinals.
All right, finally in 1A football, you got Elba at Maplesville. I mean, Alvin Henderson trying to go out not only with all these records, but with a state title, and they got to go through Maplesville to do it. And that's 2-11-2 teams. Elba will have to travel to Maplesville. That's going to be a phenomenal game, Randy.
Definitely is a great football community in Maplesville. Elba lost a couple of games early in the season, but they've righted the ship, playing a lot better on the defensive side of the ball. Some of our athletes of the week has not only come from Alvin Henderson, but on the defensive side of the ball for Elba. They can't get in an 80-78 type of game. They don't want to be in that type of game. If you can hold somebody to 25 points at Elba, you're going to win.
Right.
They're not asking, because Alvin Henderson on a bad night is going to give you 4 touchdowns and 250 yards. So you can go ahead and count on that. I think it's going to set up a matchup there in Class 1A that we've all been wanting to see, and that's Wadley and Elba, but they got to both get through these 2 semifinal games first.
Yep, Hackleburg will go to Wadley, like you said. They're 11-0, and they've been the class of 1A, but Elba and Maplesville probably going to have something to say about Hackleburg too. Hackleburg's got to travel to Wadley. It's a tough trip, but they're 12-1 on the year. All right, been great. Had some great comments. Appreciate all of your comments. John had one quick comment, Randy, about Arch Manning. He said, any thoughts about Manning leaving Texas and Bama, or of one of those teams where he might land, maybe coming over this direction, either to Auburn or Alabama?
I mean, I doubt it. He's
the next guy.
Sat back and waited his time, and he's going to be the starter in Texas. And why would you leave there when you've sat behind Quinn Ewers over the last couple of years to once it's your turn to leave out? So, no, I don't see it. But if he does go in the portal, I hope we're in the mix, because I still think that Auburn, unless we're counting on Walker White or one of these other guys that we've got on campus, or a true freshman to come in and make the difference, I still think we're going to be portal shopping too this offseason.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, we're going to wrap it up here on this Friday. I got to get to a show here in about an hour and a half, and then another one at noon. Our Auburn Blitz show will be on from noon to 1. We'll have Jason Caldwell from Auburn Undercover with us. Excited about that. And, we'll be talking more about the Iron Bowl. We're about a little over 24 hours away from the 2024 Iron Bowl. Should be a good one all the way around, Randy. And hope everybody has a great day out there.